have always similar props. So I've got a blanket and some blocks available. But today's invitation to begin is actually an invitation to begin in a standing form. So as we orient slowly to the space, there's going to be an invitation also to potentially begin standing. And today's focus, and I'm going to tilt my screen up so that you can see me all right. Standing. So today's focus or emphasis within the practice is within joints, as well as engaging with some different squats or lunge forms. So you might begin at the top of your mat. I'm going to turn so you can face me, all right? And an invitation to meet yourself where you're at. So you get to notice what's happening in your body and then make choices based on that. So at any point, if it feels like too much, you might back off a form, you might stop. If you'd like to amplify things and engage further, you might apply more energy or effort in your muscles. So perhaps to begin, maybe taking a moment to begin to notice your feet on the ground. So perhaps taking a moment to see if it's available to notice your feet making contact with that earth body beneath you. The support of gravity drawing you towards the center of the earth. This earth, this planet is probably a star in our cosmos as well. The star that we're on, drawing you towards it. And then maybe taking a moment to begin to create some movement in your head and neck. So you might turn your chin towards one shoulder and then begin rolling your head and neck in half or full circles. It's one way you might create movement in your head and neck. The joints, the vertebrae, those joining places in your upper body. There might be some sounds that you hear or you sense. Perhaps noticing that you're breathing. And then whenever you're ready, maybe coming back to center with an invitation to perhaps roll your shoulders if moving your shoulder joints interests you. And you might be moving your shoulders in a different way. Another option to create movement in your shoulders is bringing your fingertips to your shoulders and perhaps moving your elbows. That might cause larger movements in your shoulders. So noticing what size movements or the pace of your movements this morning. It might be a different pace than I'm moving or than I'm offering. And whenever you're ready, perhaps coming back to stillness, taking whatever time you need, maybe bringing your palms together to make contact with one another. Option to interlace your fingers and perhaps roll your joints out. So as we create movement in joints, as you choose to create movement in your joints, it might begin to bring some fluids to that area of your body, begin to wake up that part of your body, and maybe bringing your wrists to stillness. You might move them in a different way, maybe wiggling your fingers or shaking your hands out. And then option to bring some movement to your hips. You might begin by shifting your hips side to side is one way you could move your hips. Perhaps there's a circular motion that you're interested in. So a way of moving your hips might be moving your whole body, or maybe you isolate movement in your hip joints. Two different ways out of many that you might move your hips. So more an option to bring curiosity to your movements this morning. And then as you're ready, if you'd like to create movement in your knee joints, perhaps bringing your feet closer together if they're not already there and resting your hands on your knees with an option to use your hands to perhaps begin to guide your knees in a circular motion. So maybe falling forward and then out to the sides. And you could switch directions at any point. You might notice your feet rotating on the ground as well, or shifting contact points. And then as you're ready, perhaps taking a moment to come back up to standing, if you'd like to roll your ankle joints. So option to keep your toes on the ground and roll your ankles in that way. Or some of you might balance on one foot and roll your ankle in that way. Noticing if a little bit of balance has you curious this morning. Perhaps switching sides. And this can be a great way, just incorporating movement of your joints in this way. Even if you only have time for this in the morning, might feel supportive. You might notice a difference already. And then whenever you're ready, perhaps coming back to center with an invitation to perhaps step your right foot out to the side as you expand your hands out to the side. Coming into a standing star shape, choosing how much energy or effort you'd like to amplify outwards. You might take an inhale and reach outwards. And on your exhale, you might bend your knees coming into a squat, choosing how much you'd like to bend your knees, maybe bending your elbows, supporting some softness in your elbow joints. You might shift your weight into your heels, perhaps drawing your elbows inward and outward interests you. Maybe adding some breath, stopping at any point. And then whenever you're ready, maybe staying for 3, you might come back to center, maybe staying for 2. And whenever you're ready for 1, stepping back to center, perhaps bringing your hands to heart center. Maybe taking a lengthened inhale and exhale. Perhaps turning your gaze inward, noticing if there's an intention that's present for you. You might also bring your hands to make contact with your body. You might notice your heart beating a little bit stronger as you use those larger muscles. And then as you're ready, perhaps stepping out in the opposite direction, maybe on the left side, choosing how wide of a stance or how short of a stance you'd like to take on this side. An option if you'd like to expand 4 corners of your star, 5 corners of your stars out to the side, noticing how much softness or energy you'd like to have in your muscles. Option to take a lengthened inhale, reaching. And on your exhale, perhaps bending your knees, maybe softening your elbows, perhaps shifting your weight into your heels. You might draw your hands towards your ceiling and then bring your hands towards the center of your chest. Option to explore this sun breath while engaging with a squat. Maybe continuing for 3. Maybe continuing for 2. Maybe for 1. Whenever you're ready, stepping back to center and perhaps engaging with a chair form, choosing how much you'd like to bend your knees. You might be adding some breath as we're bending our legs lots. Perhaps bringing your hands to your knees, noticing your muscles engaged in your legs. You might feel that engagement. Whenever you're ready, perhaps coming back up to standing, maybe noticing your feet making contact with the ground. You might take a lengthened inhale and lengthen exhale. Invitation, if you'd like, to perhaps come back into your chair form. Your hands might rest on your knees. Your hands might extend forward in front of you, or you might extend them towards the ceiling. If you're curious to explore some balancing, an option might be shifting your weight into your left leg and raising your right foot a little bit, maybe shifting side to side, exploring a little bit of balance within your chair form. You might be making different choices than I'm offering. Perhaps continuing for 3. Might notice is your muscle in your legs shifting from side to side of engagement. For 2, and for 1, whenever you're ready, if you haven't already done so, perhaps coming to standing, you might bring your hands back to heart center, maybe back to your body. You might take a moment to check in with your intention. As we generate heat, as you generate heat in your body, knowing you always have the option to remain here in stillness, in a pause. If you'd like, from the top of your mat, perhaps stepping your left foot back behind you, maybe pivoting your foot towards the corner of your mat. So you're kind of coming into a bit of an awkward lunge. So it's not necessarily a warrior 2. My foot's at about a 45-degree angle with my toes towards the front of my mat, with an option to rest your hand on your upper leg and perhaps extending your right arm any amount towards the ceiling or towards your left side. Perhaps lengthening your muscles on the right side of your body. And then an option, you could stay here, or you might lower your right hand to your right leg and extend your left arm any amount towards the ceiling. You might notice sensation on the left side of your body. You might draw your breath to your left side of your body. Maybe staying for 3, maybe for 2. And for 1, whenever you're ready, an invitation to step back to center. Perhaps stepping your right foot behind you, pivoting your right foot to maybe face the corner of your mat, your left toes facing the front of your mat, perhaps bending your right leg, making any adjustments, choosing how wide of a stance you'd like to have. You might bring your your right hand to your upper right leg and perhaps extend your left fingertips towards the ceiling or maybe towards the right side of your body. Perhaps lengthening your breath. Whenever you're ready, option to lower your left hand and extend your right arm towards the ceiling. You also might keep your right arm on your right leg as well. Raising your arm might not feel supportive for you today. You get to be in charge of that stardust material inside you today. And then whenever you're ready, perhaps lowering your right arm, stepping yourself back to center in your own time. I'm going to turn to face you, perhaps stepping your foot out to the side, maybe coming into your star shape, choosing if you'd like to bend your knees to come into your squat form. You might rest your hands on your upper legs. You might notice that supports a little bit of length in your spine. Perhaps it interests you to create some movement. You might even dip one shoulder towards the ground. I found I turn my fingers inward to support lowering my shoulder. There's a few cracks happening in my body and my spine. You might have a similar experience or it might be different. And then whenever you're ready, you might find you're interested in continuing to explore this. You could even shift your knees side to side. You might notice that changes your experience in your lower back or in your hips. Perhaps pressing into your feet to bring yourself up to standing, with an invitation to maybe pivot your feet facing the length of your mat or facing forward. You might even pigeon toe your toes, turning them inward slightly. Perhaps bringing your hands to your hips if you're interested in engaging with a forward fold. So if you notice a forward fold might feel like too much, you could always bring yourself to a wall or to a windowsill and bring your hands to the wall or the windowsill to support you. Another option is to lengthen your spine and perhaps begin to hinge at your hips. Choosing how much you'd like to fold forward, adjusting the width of your feet, the stance of your feet. You might bring your hands towards the ground. Maybe releasing your muscles in your neck to allow your head to hang forward. Perhaps lengthening your breath. An invitation to see if it's available to press the mounds of your big toes into the ground while pressing the outer edges of your feet into the ground. There might be some sensation in your upper hamstrings, the back of your upper legs. One option that might interest some of you is bringing your hands to the ground in front of your face, or bringing your hands to a block in front of your face. Perhaps placing your left hand on the ground in front of you. Option to bring your right hand to your right hip. Or perhaps extending your right fingertips towards the ceiling, rotating your torso any amount as you lengthen your hips away. You might lower your right hand when you're ready, placing it on the block or the ground in front of you, choosing to maybe bring your left hand to your left hip or extending your fingertips towards the ceiling. Knowing you might come out of your forward fold at any point back up to standing. Perhaps noticing that you're breathing. And whenever you're ready, lowering both hands to the ground, you could come up from your forward fold in your own way. Another option is to lengthen your spine halfway on an inhale. Perhaps exhaling your hands to your hips. Maybe engaging your glute muscles to support you to come up to standing, taking whatever time you need, perhaps expanding and extending your fingertips to the ceiling. Option to explore, just being curious, is to see if maybe stepping your foot in one step back to center, maybe bringing your hands back to your center. That might be bringing your palms together and might be making contact with your body. If a forward fold from this stance interests you, an invitation to perhaps work the joints of your spine or move the joints of your spine might involve bringing your hands to your upper legs. You might even start with some bent knees, your knees bent, perhaps starting with your head and rolling your chin towards your chest, maybe beginning to roll vertebrae by vertebrae towards the ground as you slide your hands towards your knees, towards the ground, taking whatever time you need to roll yourself vertebrae by vertebrae towards the ground. You might choose a forward fold with bent knees, with your upper body resting on your upper legs. Or you might choose a forward fold with length in your legs, or exploring movement in your legs, if you're even choosing a forward fold this morning. Noticing if shifting your torso, your body side to side interests you. Option to hold opposite elbows. As you perhaps take a moment to draw your breath into the back of your rib basket, the back of your body. You might imagine your breath moving there if bringing it into that place today doesn't feel accessible. Maybe lengthen inhale and exhale interest you. If you're holding opposite elbows, perhaps releasing your hands back to the ground. And an invitation to begin to press your feet into the ground, to roll yourself up to standing vertebrae by vertebrae. And you might use your hands and your legs to support that. Or you could bring yourself up vertebrae by vertebrae in your own time, if that's the way you choose to come up to standing. Once you get there, perhaps noticing that you're breathing, maybe noticing your feet making contact with the ground beneath you, that earth body beneath you. You might engage your upper legs or lengthen your spine, finding your version of mountain form this morning. Perhaps drawing your shoulders towards your ears and then rolling your shoulder blades down your back, if that interests you. You are made of that stardust stuff. And then whenever you're ready, an invitation to begin to bring yourself down to your mat. So you might do that in your own way. One option to explore is perhaps raising your heels off the ground any amount. You might engage your lower leg muscles and perhaps bringing your hands in front of your shoulders to support some balance. Perhaps beginning to bend your knees and lower yourself down to the mat. In that way, there might be some popping in your knees or sounds in your knees. And then bring your hands behind you to support your option to lower your body down to your mat. So you could have your hands behind your knees, you might extend your fingertips, or you might round your spine down. Maybe taking a moment to draw your knees in towards your torso for a moment before resting form. Or if there's another movement that you notice there's an impulse to engage with in your body, please feel welcome to do so. If you have your knees towards your torso, perhaps rocking side to side. This might offer a bit of a massage to your muscles and your back body. Maybe coming back to center and holding your knees with your hands, perhaps flexing your feet to use your hands to guide your knees in a circular motion. You might notice an interest to separate your knees and guide your knees independent of one another as another option. And then whenever you're ready, you might already be preparing for resting form. There's an invitation to lower your feet to the ground, noticing how you'd like to rest today, if it's with your knees leaning in towards one another, if having a blanket with you over top of your body or underneath your head interests you, perhaps extending your feet to the bottom of your mat, or having your hands resting on your body or on the ground. There's always the option to rest sitting up or rest on your side as well. Perhaps taking a lengthened inhale, maybe exhaling out your mouth. Option to bring your attention to your head, resting on the ground supporting the weight of your head. Perhaps bringing your awareness to your back body, making contact with the ground, your upper back, your lower back resting on the ground. It might be available to notice your legs or your feet resting on the ground, with an option to create any movement at any point, and perhaps taking the opportunity to rest quietly together for a few moments. Whenever you're ready, perhaps creating movement in your fingers or your toes, your hands or your feet. You might be interested in reaching your hands up overhead and stretching between your toes and your fingers if you're on your back. There might be a yawn emerge. And if you're resting on your back, an invitation to roll over onto your side if you'd like. Rest for a moment on your side, or you might come up to seated right away. If you're on your side, perhaps beginning to draw yourself up to a supportive seated form. Your eyes might be open, they might be closed. Perhaps bringing your hands to make contact with your body. It might be below your collarbones. You might have a hand on your abdomen. This is your body. This is my body. Maybe taking a moment to offer your body, to offer yourself a moment of gratitude, of kindness for showing up this morning to make choices that supported you. If there's a higher power, higher source you'd like to honor, maybe taking a moment to do so. And if your hands are resting on your body, you might keep them there or lower them to your lap or your legs, beginning to open your eyes if they weren't already open to receive light and orient to your surroundings, beginning to look around now in this moment. Seeing what stands out for you, gives you interest or pleasure to notice now. There might be doorways or windows you give attention to, or even turning your body to look behind you. Taking into consideration, taking into consideration, we are a way for the universe to know itself. Some part of our being knows this is where we came from. We long to return, and we can, because the cosmos is also within us. We are made of star stuff. I'm just going to transition myself forward here. Thank you, folks.